Hello everyone, it's the month of February, and you know what that means? It's Valentine season. However, I'm not really a big fan of this holiday. I think if you love someone, you should do it every single day and not just on one day. But also, it's a very lonely and depressing holiday for me. I just don't like it. I mean, my life during Valentine's is practically like Lego Batman. Yeah, I sit in a robe, I have a Batman mask, and I watch Jerry Maguire. Yeah, that's pretty much what my life is like, really. But since it is the month of February, I decided to share with you my recommendations for rom-coms or romantic films during this time of the year. Much like my Halloween or Christmas video, here will be my recommendations of films you can watch for this time. To start off, I think nobody can go wrong with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Sleepless in Seattle is a classic. You have that whole thing with the Dirty Dozen and Affair to Remember, and the romance there, the long distance connection between them, and a radio show. Sleepless in Seattle is a classic. Any 90s kids growing up, you remember probably watching this film, and another film with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks called You've Got Mail. You've Got Mail is actually very ahead of its time, not only with the internet, but social media and like the dating platform as far as like talking to people through a computer rather than face to face. There's just something that was very ahead of its time for this film, and it's a wonderful Tom Hanks Meg Ryan reunion, and a very unexpected one. They don't like each other in real life, but they get to know each other online, and I find that very interesting. You've Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle are classics. Going with Meg Ryan, you also have When Harry Met Sally with her and Billy Crystal. Such a fantastic movie of friends who have a mutual respect and maybe perhaps love for each other over a long course of time. I really like this film, a classic directed by Rob Reiner. And you also have French Kiss with Meg Ryan and Kevin Kline. A very underrated movie, in fact. It's a mid-90s movie, and she's basically getting after her ex who dumped her, Timothy Hutton. And she meets a thief, played by Kevin Kline. Such a fantastic movie. Another classic underrated film is Moonstruck. Snap Out of It with Cher and Nicolas Cage, Danny Aiello. Such a fantastic film. Cher won an Oscar for her performance in Moonstruck, and it's an awesome movie and one of Nicolas Cage's best roles. I love this movie. Everything about this movie is pure magic and is perfect for any time of the year, really. Especially this time, whether you're in a relationship or single and by yourself. Moonstruck is a classic film, and I love it. Another classic film is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I love this movie. HBO Films did it, but like, yeah, she's Greek, her family's Greek, he's not. And what happens when you bring a man like that home who's not Greek? What are the family expectations? And that movie really brings that up in a funny, realistic way. My Big Fat Greek Wedding is a classic. Going to weddings, another movie I really enjoy is The Wedding Date with Deborah Messing and Dermot Mulroney. There's a wedding of her sisters, and she has to bring a date, a wedding date. So she hires a male escort to be her wedding date. Craziness ensues, but they end up falling in love with one another. I love this movie, a very underrated rom-com. On the subject of wedding and friends, there's also Maid of Honor with Patrick Dempsey and Michelle Monaghan. I love Maid of Honor. Pretty much, he meets this girl. They're best friends, but they're more than friends. They don't admit that. He doesn't open up to her. She is getting engaged to someone else, and it's really a realization of him not wanting to lose his best friend and pretty much his soulmate. And that's what it's about. He ends up being the Maid of Honor. So it's a spin on words with Maid of Honor and Maid of Honor, and it's nice. It's a very well done rom-com that really leaves you going until the end. You're really not sure if it's going to end in that movie magic type of way. It feels like it might go with a more realistic approach. And I like that. It's very rare to have a rom-com that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Going with Patrick Dempsey and more towards Reese Witherspoon, Sweet Home Alabama is a classic film, done from the director of Fools Rush In, another great movie of two different worlds coming together. But Sweet Home Alabama pretty much has her, Patrick Dempsey, getting engaged. She comes back home and she realizes she's still married to her previous husband, Josh Lucas. So yes, comedy ensues, as well as some really dramatic moments. I love Sweet Home Alabama. Such an underrated movie that never gets old. Another Reese Witherspoon rom-com I like, and it's really more of a drama, is Just Like Heaven with her and Mark Ruffalo. Just Like Heaven is a really great film. Mark Ruffalo plays a widower, and he sees a spirit of Reese Witherspoon, who basically, I guess in a way, died. She's a ghost, and it's really about two different spirits together. And I like that. It really goes beyond the physical attributes of a person. It goes more towards two souls belonging to one another. Some very funny yet dramatic moments. John Heder also plays a sidekick. Very underrated Reese Witherspoon film. Continuing with Reese Witherspoon, we have This Means War with Chris Pine and Tom Hardy. They're CIA special agents, and they both fall for the same girl. Nothing comes between two friends like one woman, and yes, Reese Witherspoon is that woman. So Chris Pine and Tom Hardy have to fight and basically compete with each other for the love of Reese Witherspoon. A funny comedy that has great moments of action and just all around is fun. After that is America's Sweethearts. I like this movie. It's really a play on the Hollywood culture. You have John Cusack with Julia Roberts, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Billy Crystal. I love this movie. If you're a fan of like movies and actors and celebrity gossip and rom-coms, this is like everything put into one. Plus, Christopher Walken has a funny cameo. Continuing with Catherine Zeta-Jones, we have Intolerable Cruelty, directed by one of the Coen brothers with her and George Clooney. This is a funny movie. George Clooney pretty much plays a divorce attorney, and it's him falling in love with this woman. And there's more than meets the eye with her as well. I won't get into too many spoilers, but go ahead and check out Intolerable Cruelty. It's funny and one of the better George Clooney movies. I mean, one of the Coen brothers did it. How bad can it be? Going with Julia Roberts, we have the classic Pretty Woman, directed by Gary Marshall. Her and Richard Gere. It Must Have Been Love, But It's Over Now by Roxette Sinnet. I love this movie. Yeah, there's a lot of 90s kids who probably watched Pretty Woman with their mom, their parents, and I have to say, it's a pretty heavy subject, but it shows you that even a hooker can have a happy ending. Yeah, there's a lot of kids who grew up with that movie, but it's funny. Pretty Woman is a classic. I love it. I love Richard Gere and Julia Roberts' chemistry here. It's just perfection and pure magic. Another film that I really like is Notting Hill. It's Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, and Julia Roberts plays this actress who Hugh Grant likes. She comes into their local town, and it's really about him getting to know the person beneath the celebrity. And I like it. It's really great. I mean, it'd be like, what would happen if, like, I was working at a bookstore and Emma Watson just walked into the store? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I would think then. From the same director, another funny yet dramatic movie with Hugh Grant is 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And that's pretty much what it's about. 4 weddings and a funeral. And he likes this woman who's married to someone else. Or engaged to someone else. So, like, yeah, he's engaging with the engaged. You know what that brings up in movies, but it's a very well done movie and very underrated, I might say. One of my favorite Hugh Grant roles is in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Also from the same director is an underrated time travel film called About Time. I love About Time. There's certain moments that get to your heart. If you have a father, you know what I mean, but About Time is wonderful. It's pretty much about a time traveler. He falls in love with Rachel McAdams, and it's a life of a time traveler done in a realistic and fresh way. I love About Time. It's a very, very underrated movie. Probably one of the most underrated movies of the decade. I love it. It's a realistic rom-com. And there's nothing better than that. Going back to John Cusack, we have The Sure Thing with John Cusack, Daphne Zuniga. He's after this woman, the sure thing, but you know, sometimes we have our sights set on something that seems like it's the sure thing, and really, the sure thing's been in front of us the whole time. What we've been looking for has been in front of us the whole time, and we've just been blind to it. That's what that movie is about. I love The Sure Thing. It is a 1980s classic. And another classic with John Cusack is Serendipity with him and Kate Beckinsale. Oh my god. I love this movie. It goes by really fast, but pretty much 2 strangers meet, and they decide whether or not to continue the relationship. They both kind of just met each other, and they decide to leave it to fate. They don't meet each other. Things aren't left to fate until almost a decade later, and by chance, they are trying to find one another. They're both are engaged to other people, but they can't stop thinking about that one night. And by chance, by fate, will they meet? And that's the crazy thing about serendipity. It's really a story about fate and things that are predestined or things that are meant to be. And both Sure Thing and Serendipity have something on the constellation of Cassiopeia, so that's pretty cool. Going on some lighter movies, Adam Sandler. I highly recommend The Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. It's in the 80s. He's a wedding singer. He falls in love with a girl. Wonderful comedy. I would also recommend 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. She has short-term memory. She had an accident, so she doesn't remember him. So that's why it's called 50 First Dates. He has to constantly reintroduce himself. And it's really like 50 First Dates or 50 First Meetings, really. I love it. It's really about a story of two people who love each other, who belong to each other, but she forgets. How would you feel if somebody forgot about you? But the wonderful thing is you get to fall in love with them all over again, and they get to fall in love with you. I don't know. There's something very bittersweet and almost tragic in a way in 50 First Dates, a very underrated Adam Sandler comedy. Another comedy that's similar that I like is Just Go With It with Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler. He's a plastic surgeon, and yeah, he ends up finding a young woman. He wants to impress her, but he uses his best friend slash co-worker as his ex-wife, acting as his ex-wife. It's not really his ex-wife. So it's really this facade that Adam Sandler is playing upon. But also, he starts to know, like many other films, that his best friend was his soulmate. And it's really about Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler falling in love. Very underrated movie with a great cameo by Nicole Kidman and Dave Matthews from the Dave Matthews Band. Yeah, I won't look at coconuts the same way. That's all I have to say. For a more serious note, perhaps the greatest romantic trilogy of all time, and this isn't a rom-com. I'm talking about Richard Linklater's Before trilogy with Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. Probably the most realistic interpretation of a love story I have seen on film. So wonderful. The first one is always the best with the magic. The second one, 9 years later, talks about missed opportunities. Events that should have gone another way, why you feel a certain way. The idea of, if your life was in another place, will it be better? Before Midnight is the consequences of that. Basically, sometimes be careful what you wish for, and you'll get it. And sometimes people aren't happy when they have true love, when they have everything. And it's great. I love that trilogy. Such a hidden gem of a trilogy, vastly underrated. If you have not gotten a chance to see the Before trilogy, any of the films, I highly recommend it. They're among Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke's best. Going with Ethan Hawke, I also like this film called Reality Bites, directed by Ben Stiller. It has Ben Stiller, Winona Ryder, Janine Garofalo, Steve Zahn, and Ethan Hawke, and I love it. I love Reality Bites. Stay by Lisa Loeb's in it. Perhaps people would want Winona Ryder to end up with someone else. She chooses one of the people, Ben Stiller or Ethan Hawke. She chooses one of them, and some people weren't happy with the ending. As bad as one of the characters was to her, I thought it was a more realistic relationship, meaning he was real with her. But I just want one of these movies to just say, you know what, have one of the women just say, forget both you guys and go our own way and find someone better. It always has to be a love triangle. That's the only con I have against this, but if you're in the mood for a comedy with a little bit of drama and just Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, Ben Stiller when they were younger, go ahead and check out Reality Bites. It's very much a Gen X movie of the 90s. Going with a classic in 2012, Silver Linings Playbook is among one of my favorite films. I love Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper's chemistry in this, Robert De Niro, the Eagles games, oh my god, just everything about this movie. Every time I listen to My Sharia More by Stevie Wonder, I start to lose my shit. It's a very, very, very underrated movie, and I like it. It's a very feel-good movie. No matter what time of day or no matter what mood, I can always rewatch this over and over. Now, for another film in 2012, this isn't really a romantic film. There's moments of love, but it's a drama. And I'm talking about The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Yeah, this movie really got to me. I was a wallflower. I still very much am, but like, this movie was heavy for me, but it's very real, and also it's from a male perspective, which is very different on the coming-of-age tales in high school. Something that's very fresh, and I love it. I love the performances in this, and it's a very endearing movie. Not exactly a rom-com, or like the other films I mentioned on this list, but if you're in the mood for something different, that's more of a drama, Perks of Being a Wallflower is your bet. But if you're in the mood for something that's funny, yet heartbreaking, I recommend Crazy Stupid Love. Oh my gosh, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, you have Julianne Moore, Kevin Bacon. This movie is just pure insanity, and it really focuses on different groups in love, whether it be children, teens, adults. It is wonderful. Steve Carell gives a funny performance, and Crazy Stupid Love is the title. It is Crazy Stupid Love. If you haven't got a chance to see it, I recommend it. It's just pure craziness. Another really great romantic film starring Steve Carell is Dan in Real Life. I love this film. He's a widower. He has 3 daughters, and he comes back home. There's like this lodge cabin they have, and he meets this woman at a bookstore. He's a writer, and he meets this woman, thinks she could be the one. He comes home, his brother has a new girlfriend, and it is the woman he met. And yeah, you could imagine craziness ensues, and it is about Dan in real life. Very underrated Steve Carell film. I just love this movie. Going with other different rom-coms, I also recommend Look Who's Talking. I love Look Who's Talking with Kirstie Alley and John Travolta. It's pretty much about Kirstie Alley. She sleeps with her boss, and she ends up having his kid. He doesn't want to be the father, so she's a single mother. And she ends up meeting John Travolta, a taxi cab driver. He's the one that delivers her to the hospital when she's in labor. Anyways, they get to know one another, and the baby is shown, and he's narrated from the voice of Bruce Willis. So it's Bruce Willis and a baby's perspective. Just a wonderful movie. Look Who's Talking is a true original and a very underrated John Travolta film. I just love the chemistry between Kirstie Alley and John Travolta. Another movie that's a Spanish film in Mexico that reminds me a lot of Look Who's Talking is Don't Blame the Kid with Carla Souza. I love this movie. There's a wedding. She gets hitched with one of the guys. She doesn't know who knocked her up. And it's this young kid. So he has to be the father, but she comes from a very high-class family. And he's kind of a second-class citizen to them. Even though he's a regular person, he's a kid, but he's beneath their level, so it really plays upon that. A great romantic comedy in a way with a lot of really heartfelt dramatic moments. Another underrated film I would recommend is Tortilla Soup with Hector Elizondo. It's great. He has 3 daughters, and it's their relationships in life as well as his. His wife passed away years before, and he's a cook. He started to lose his taste, but it's really about him as a chef and his 3 daughters and what they're doing in their love lives. I love this movie. It's a very funny movie with terrific performances all around by the cast. And yeah, this is one of those movies that makes you hungry. You just look at the food and you're like, I feel like eating something. Another underrated older film is Houseboat with Cary Grant and Sophia Loren. I love this. They have to live on a houseboat. It's pretty much like The Nanny there. He ends up going with her. She takes care of the kids, and it's them falling in love. I love this movie. A very, very underrated Cary Grant, Sophia Loren film. And going with Cary Grant, back to Sleepless in Seattle, we have An Affair to Remember. I don't know if I really want to go into detail with this film because it is such a classic, and for all you romantics out there, it does have a very deep, heartfelt ending. Some may find it sad and tragic, some may find it like, whatever, it's a rom-com or like an old romantic movie. An Affair to Remember is an American movie classic. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out with Cary Grant. It is fantastic. Another classic I love is Casablanca, starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman. Oh my god, this film is an American movie classic. You can be a hopeless romantic, you can be a cinephile, you can just be a regular human being, and you'll love this movie. This is one of the finest films ever made, and I just love everything about this movie. Also, it is one of the most quotable films of all time. Another film by Rob Reiner I really love is The Princess Bride. The perfect fairy tale incarnate. I just love it. As You Wish. Dread Pirate Roberts. Andre the Giant. Mr. Inconceivable. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. I just love Carrie Elwes and Robin Wright's chemistry in this film. You also have Peter Falk and Fred Savage as the grandfather reads his grandson this story of The Princess Bride. It is an awesome movie and a perfect fairy tale for this time of season and just any time. I recommend Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio, Claire Danes, and John Leguizamo. Such a perfect modernization that's gritty, realistic, and all around just heartbreaking at the end. From the same director and Leonardo DiCaprio, I also recommend the remake of The Great Gatsby. Oh my god, this is like a heartbreaking film. If you're in the mood for like the most depressing thing ever, check out The Great Gatsby. Young and Beautiful by Lana Del Rey is such a sad song, but that sequence is probably one of the most depressing sequences I've seen since the Who Wants to Live Forever scene from Highlander. Oh my god. It is just a heartbreaking and just all-around depressing movie. So if you want to be miserable this season on Valentine's, check out The Great Gatsby. Now, going to very underrated rom-coms and just romantic films, I recommend A Walk in the Clouds with Keanu Reeves. I love this movie. It has Anthony Quinn in it, and it's also from the director of Like Water for Chocolate. Such an old-fashioned movie. It's made like an older film, even though it was in the 90s. I love it. I love the cinematography and just all around the vibe of this movie. It's an old-fashioned romantic film, and they really don't make them like they used to. A Walk in the Clouds is a portal to the past. Another really great rom-com, or should I say romantic film, with Keanu Reeves is The Lake House with him and Sandra Bullock. I haven't seen a film deal with time travel in such a heartbreaking way since Somewhere in Time. The Lake House is a wonderful film, and Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves' chemistry is just dynamite. Also, speaking of Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, go ahead and watch Speed. Why? Just for the hell of it. Speed's an awesome movie, and if you're all about chemistry, Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves are just perfect in the movie Speed. So yeah, check that out while you're at it. Going to Sandra Bullock, on to Ryan Reynolds, I also recommend The Proposal. She plays Ryan Reynolds' boss, and she risks being deported out of the country. She needs to be married. So she gets her lackey, her worker, Ryan Reynolds, to be her husband, and they pose as a newlywed couple. I love it. I love this movie. They have to get married before she's deported. I just love it, but they also learn much about each other, like many of these other films. Going with Ryan Reynolds, I love Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds and Amy Smart. Perfect for Christmas, and Valentine's. Yeah, that I Swear sing by All For One, and he's fat, just is funny, yet just kind of like endearing. Like, we've had moments like that where people sing to themselves. But it's just a good film of like, hey, there's this friend, you feel more about them, go after what you love. And that's what that movie's about with Ryan Reynolds. Going with a love story, it's not your conventional love story, but yes, I count Deadpool as a romantic film. For those out there, it's a bit edgier, but hey, he's trying to get the woman he loves back. And that's just there's just something so endearing about that. He's been wronged, and the main bad guy messes with his woman, and you don't do that. Not on a superhero. And Deadpool is just a funny, romantic, satirical film. I love it. Now back to unconventional. This can be considered a guy's film, or should I say stalker film, but I also recommend There's Something About Mary if you're in the mood for something funnier. And going from Cameron Diaz, I also recommend What Happens in Vegas with her and Ashton Kutcher. Again, two strangers who kind of hate each other but then learn to love each other. After that, in comedy section, I also recommend Ben Stiller and Jennifer Aniston in the film Along Came Polly. He's married to Deborah Messing. She fools around with a scuba diver instructor on their honeymoon. He's heartbroken, and he decides to go out of his comfort zone to basically find happiness in life. I love this movie. Alec Baldwin also has a funny cameo as his boss. I just love Along Came Polly. Very funny movie, and also features the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman. Two other films I really love is Chasing Liberty with Matthew Goode and Mandy Moore. I like this movie. It has the feeling of like What a Girl Wants and some other films, First Daughter with Katie Holmes, but Chasing Liberty is a great movie. It's pretty much the president's daughter on a European road trip. As she decides to escape home, she doesn't want to be there. She meets this guy, and it's their relationship towards one another. And basically, all these people try to find the president's daughter. She wants to rebel. And it's really a story about people finding themselves. I like this movie. After that, I'd also recommend Son-in-Law with Pauly Shore and Carla Gugino. I love this movie. Lane Smith is a dad. It pretty much involves these college students going home for like Thanksgiving, and her former boyfriend, who's a jock, wants to propose. She's not ready for that, so she gets her friend to be her fiancé. Her friend volunteers to be her fiancé, and they think it's a real relationship, so it's him acting as a son-in-law. Such a funny film. Another film I recommend is What Women Want with Helen Hunt and Mel Gibson. Such a funny movie about this misogynistic man getting the ability to read women's thoughts. That would be wonderful, but I wouldn't recommend listening to Bitch by Meredith Brooks, because if you do, and you're in the shower, you're going to get electrocuted. You're not going to hear what women think. Another tragic film, and I don't care who you are, if you're a human being, you're going to cry on this film, and that is Ghost. Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze, Whoopi Goldberg. Ghost is the most depressing, yet romantic film I have seen in my life, and if you don't cry on this, then you're not human. Or at least I've never met a human being who doesn't think Ghost is sad. No matter what mood you're in, no matter how you feel, Ghost will always make you cry. And that song, oh my god. Two Jack Nicholson films I recommend is As Good As It Gets with him, Helen Hunt, Greg Kinnear, and also Something's Gotta Give with him and Diane Keaton with Keanu Reeves. Two great movies about this guy who's just a jerk to everyone, but then finds someone who loves him and finds somebody to love. Two other films with a leading poster cover is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and Failure to Launch. Two similar movies, but How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey are great. She's trying to figure out how to lose this guy in 10 days. And Failure to Launch is pretty much like me. How do you get somebody out of the nest, you know? And him and Sarah Jessica Parker are great. Overboard, directed by Gary Marshall, is fantastic with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. She's a rich person, and Kurt Russell plays a tool man who basically fixes a closet for her. She's very rude, and she ends up going overboard the next night and doesn't remember who she is. So as revenge, Kurt Russell gets her and says, "Hey, you're married to me," and he pretty much gets her as a maid. They're remaking this film now, but it's such a wonderful film, and yeah, Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn are that magic couple, and Overboard is a fantastic film with a lot of heart to it. If you have not checked out the original 1987 Overboard, do it. It's one of the best Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell movies. I really love that film. Next is A Cynical, Cynical World, You Complete Me, with Jerry Maguire. It's really a tale of somebody who's a certain way, and through the course of the film they learn how to change, or should I say they care about something more than their profession or themselves. It's really a story of how to love. And I love Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire is a classic. Show me the money. And go on to a more melancholy, depressive film. If you've been through a breakup or a single, or just anybody who knows love, the sweet and the sour, I also recommend Cameron Crowe and Tom Cruise in Vanilla Sky, a remake of Abre los Ojos. Vanilla Sky, such a melancholy film and just something that's very cerebral. Another depressive film like that I would recommend is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind with Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet. The pains of heartbreak, a breakup, but also falling in love with a person again without knowing that you fell in love with them before. It's just very haunting and just very endearing. And whether or not it could work out, if you're going to be always in a vicious cycle of this love-hate relationship. Such a fantastic science fiction romantic film. 500 Days of Summer is a fantastic film, especially from a male's perspective. Oh my god, this film is heartbreaking and hits straight through the goddamn heart. If you've been through something like this, you know what type of emotions 500 Days of Summer brings up. But then also there's that moment of like, there's always someone else. You may go through it again. It may be a repetitive cycle. Who knows? Nobody knows. But you got to keep trying. You got to keep bringing yourself out there, no matter the cost. And 500 Days of Summer is great with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel. Yeah, very, very underrated movie. And a very realistic love story, in fact, especially from a male's perspective. Going on an underrated movie, I love At First Sight with Val Kilmer and Mia Sorvino. Oh my god, At First Sight is such a fantastic movie. She falls in love with a blind man, and it goes to show, is sight everything for love, you know? And it's just a crazy movie. He ends up regaining his sight through a miracle surgery and then starts to lose it, and you get to see their relationship go up and down with this ability and her feelings towards him as a blind man. A very underrated Mira Sorvino and Val Kilmer film. Next, we have Channing Tatum with The Vow with Rachel McAdams. I can't believe this is a true story. Such an endearing and heartfelt tale of like somebody being in a car accident and they don't remember you. They don't remember falling in love with you or anything. And there's something very frightening and haunting about that. Yet it shows you the power of love and how much it can overcome. Such a great story, and I can't believe it's true. Then I recommend Nicholas Sparks with Dear John with Channing Tatum and Amanda Seyfried. I love Dear John. A very underrated movie. Another great movie with Nicholas Sparks is The Notebook. Such a sad tale with Rachel McAdams, Ryan Gosling, and then you have James Garner. Oh my god. Yeah. The old and young relationships between this are just fantastic, and I love everything about this movie. A true classic romantic tale. After that, it's more of a modern horror movie, but I really love the film Warm Bodies. It really shows you the power of love and how much it can overturn with zombies. I just love it. It's like a crazy movie, and it's very well done and fresh and original. After that, I recommend the rendition of Beauty and the Beast with Beastly, with Vanessa Hudgens. I love Beastly. It's a very unique twist on the Beauty and the Beast tale. Next, I recommend one Hallmark movie that I actually do love, and that's Karen Kingsbury's The Bridge. I love The Bridge Part 1 and 2 together. They're a perfect love story. If you haven't seen it, check it out and read the book. If you're in the mood for something like a horror film, whether you're in a relationship or single, you just fucking hate Valentines or whatever, I would recommend the remake of My Bloody Valentine, especially in 3D with Jensen Ackles. I love that movie. It's gory, but if you're in the mood for something different, watch My Bloody Valentine. Both that one and the original. And also, if you're in the mood for something action-packed yet has a love story, I highly recommend the underrated Casino Royale, perhaps maybe the best 007 film. I love Vesper and James Bond's relationship in this, and it's such a tragic, perfect love story that really shows you the beginning of what made James Bond 007. That is it for this long list of romantic film recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's so many other films. I'm going to save them for later years, but if I missed one, if you want to recommend one, let me know some of your favorite romantic films during the Valentine season or just any season down below in the comments. Yeah, I really don't like Valentines. Yeah, I said my reasons, but yeah. So, this is just some film recommendations of films I love. If you like this video, click the like button, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Hope everybody has a happy Valentine's Day. That goes for people in a relationship, people who are married, even you people, single people out there. We gotta stick together. You gotta keep going through, and you know what? Keep doing what you do best. Work on yourself and make yourself a better person than you were yesterday. And that's all that matters. You don't have to be like other people getting giant-sized teddy bears that are like 50 to 80 bucks. No. So whoever is out there, whatever your status, profession, whatever you are out there, I hope you enjoy these romantic film recommendations, and above all, I think everybody should just love each other no matter what. There's different ways to love, and as long as everybody's kind to one another, and not just a dick or douchebag to anybody, a bitch to anyone, I think it'd be a better world. Anyways, for this Valentine season, enjoy these recommendations.